Hello, welcome to another video where today it's just going to be an update on some major projects that I'm working on because I am currently house sitting for my sister and I was expecting to maybe be able to do some videos here. I had two set up for 2 out of the 3 I would do during this period. I already figured I wasn't probably going to be able to stream, but unfortunately I really wasn't able to find anything to reasonably talk about. And every time I sort of found something that maybe I could make interesting, there was like a jackhammer in the background, and that sort of tipped the scales on one side. I was also planning on maybe doing some cooking videos, but that didn't pan out either because this stove is a bit of a beast, and one I'm not too comfortable with just yet. The difference between sauteing and burning something is like that much. So, yeah, considering I'm house sitting, I'd rather not burn the apartment down, and having to do a video while I learn this stove is just going to make that abundantly more likely. Now, as for what I have planned for when I get back, I really wanted to talk about 3 things today. First, Iron Ore to Steel series, I haven't forgotten about that, but one of the things that I realized was I was making the same flavor of video. I had like 2 topics lined up that I wanted to talk about. I won't get into those right now because they probably will be a later video and I want to keep that a surprise, but they were basically coming sort of one after another, sort of different flavors of the same thing. And I wanted something entirely different. I didn't want like episodes, what are we on, like 6, 7, 8, all to be like different flavors of the same thing. Like, here's where you can get iron from this. This is a particularly good source of iron you can get things from. This is a type of iron, like, you get the idea. So what is next for the series? Well, actually it's something you might not expect, and that's melting aluminum. And you might rightly ask, well, it's a series about iron, why are you melting aluminum? And the answer is twofold. First, it's a test of how hot any sort of apparatus, forge, furnace can get. You can't just stick a thermometer into a furnace and figure out exactly how hot it is. And you need a certain threshold of heat to be able to do what you need to do. So if you melt aluminum in it, you can say it's at least, this hot. Or if you melt copper in it, you can say it's at least this much hotter than that. That's roughly as good as you can get. And if I'm having trouble melting aluminum, I'm going to have way more trouble forging steel. And the second reason is safety and efficacy. If you're making iron in a bloomery furnace, that bloom is going to come out heavy, hot enough to really, really hurt you, and may chip and break off in places to spread that incredibly hot material around to places you might least expect it to hit you. And practicing handling materials like that, in this case practicing with casting aluminum, may prevent you from making some mistakes. It's a very much lighter metal, and it's probably not going to be made in the same quantities as a giant iron bloom. So it's better to practice on that and recognize mistakes you might make, like, oh, I need a better tool to hold the metal. It's better to learn that now than to just jump straight into trying to make metal in a bloomery furnace. Now, somewhat adjacent to that is the next project, woodworking. I've sort of teased it a bit here and there with the wood drying solar kiln thing, but I really want to get into that on the channel. I've worked on some things before, but those were in like shop conditions. I do have some of the same equipment, but what I don't have is the pre-dried, pre-prepared, squared, and, easily workable pieces of wood that I had when I created the 2 things that I created in shop class. I do have a table saw, I do have a couple of other things that would be useful, but especially when it comes to the actual pieces of wood I'm working with, that's been the prerequisite so far, and I'm actually kind of getting there. I was actually able to split the piece of plum that I was working with quite well, with no major issues, and it looks really nice in the middle. I've also sort of figured out where you have to cut logs in order to get that sort of straight split. you can't just, cut a log anywhere and expect it to behave. You have to sort of cut it in very specific spots and not too long. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. But so far, so good there. I've learned what I needed to learn. And to me, this is a really important part of the channel because while it is nice for trees to be kept alive and continue to grow, sometimes they are not on the path to that. And oftentimes they either have fallen down or they have died or are on the path to either of those two, and it's completely and utterly imminent. There's nothing you can do to save them, and it would be a real waste for that wood to just go back into the carbon cycle. Turning it into something really nice and useful is so much better, and it's part of the reason that I've been sort of waiting to cut up some of the trees that have fallen down, because I want to know how to properly process them and dry them before I chop them up. I don't want that wood to be ruined. Obviously, you don't take all of it. That process of decay is important and natural. But taking some of the really choice pieces to keep that carbon out of the atmosphere is really important in my opinion. And last but not least, the third project is the experimental garden. In this case, it's experimenting solanums. I've already talked about that in a previous video, but I'm hoping that continues to be a recurring series. This year, it certainly will continue. I'll continue to do experiments year after year, but hopefully that does well this year. I've done a lot to sort of set it up. However, I have been house sitting for the last week. I did go back in the middle to sort of check on it, got rid of a bunch of slugs, but being away for so long, it does make me kind of like, should I really be talking about this right now? Is that bad luck? Anyway, I'm really hopeful. Hopefully it's lasted the week, and I can't wait to see if there are any decent harvests to be had, because so far the experiment has promising pieces. Parts that are annoying, but there are parts that are incredibly promising. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening, and I hope you continue to learn and enjoy. As always, I wish you the best. Till next time.